Okay. All right. So appraisals. What is an appraisal? We talked about this in chapter 1, if you guys remember. It was a long time ago, right? What's an appraisal? Without reading. Okay.
Based on estimated.
Yeah, you're reading. Okay.
I'm not.
That's not what I'm saying. What is an appraisal? Estimate of value. Got it. Based on what?
Based on-
It's based on what you said. Yes, but there's something else there. There's another word I want for this. What is an appraisal? It's the estimate of value based on supported methods and all that stuff. Right. Got it. But that's not what I'm trying. Thank you, Stephen. An opinion. That's all I wanted to know. It's an opinion. Do you guys remember that I had this up here? And I said that everybody has a different view of this. Like my view is the barcode. Your view is like Windex, right? But you guys don't have the same view as the people who are sitting here or me. But it's the same item. So we can all look at the same house, right? But they've different prices or values to it. So an estimate of value is literally an opinion. And as such, that opinion can be challenged, right? So I have my opinion. You got your opinion about things. That's great because that's what makes us different. If we had the same opinion, we'd all be the same. And I don't know. Be boring. Stephen says educated or uneducated. Even when you're educated about something, like I'll put it this way, we usually challenge appraisers or request a second appraisal. And from appraiser to appraiser value is also different. It's the same concept that we're going to go through, same process, but for some reason, their opinions are different. And I had this years ago. I had one of our agents at the company that I was at a long time ago. One of our agents had a deal where the appraisal came $30,000 below. And obviously, if it's $30,000 below, it's not going to go through because the loan is based on. You guys had these chapters already. The loan is based on what? The value, the appraisal. The loan is based on the value of the house. So if it's 30,000 below, the buyer would have to come up with $30,000 extra out of pocket. You guys understand? Not only the down payment, because the lender only lends up to that, but more money out of pocket. Now, what happened was our agent asked me what to do, and I said, hey, the same thing that just happened with another agent, but I still know the outcome of that one. But the agent asked, Bruno, appraisal came low. What do we do? And I said, you challenge the appraisal. You request a second one. Provide your comps. The lender will request a second appraisal. And they did. Here comes another appraiser. Guess what the value was? 50 over.
Oh.
And I'm like, how can you have $80,000 difference in a matter of 2 months? We're not talking about there was a crisis and the market recovered, right? Or what happened in the past few years, right? That's not what we're talking about. It was a matter of 2 months. We went from 30 less to 50 above. Guess what the bank said? No. The bank said, we're not going to move forward with this. There's something wrong. They literally canceled. The bank, the lender says something's fishy here. We're canceling the deal. So they had to go somewhere else. Now, the problem is also this was an FHA deal. And in case you guys don't know, the FHA attaches to the house, not to the person. So whenever you request an FHA type loan, they open a case that's open for 6 months against the house. So with that being said, the property could not be sold unless it was conventional for the next 6 months. Because it didn't matter who brought a buyer. If it was FHA, it would go to the same desk, same file, and they'd be like, 30 less, 50 more. What are we doing here? Okay, so that particular property happened to be sold conventional because that was the offer that came through, but otherwise he would have to drop the listing. There's nothing he could do. Okay, all because appraisers have their opinion of value. Now, usually what happens is another appraiser comes through, the difference is like 10K, 20K maybe, but $80,000 difference between one and the other, it's a huge difference, right? So, Steven, seriously. So what happens to Donald Trump's appraiser? I'm sure he's going to have no problem, even if he gets sued. I'm sure all of them are taken care of. I don't see anybody stressing about it.
Masters at CYA.
Yeah, that's right. They're masters at CYA. So when the market crashed, right? A lot of the crash was fabricated by Countrywide and Washington Mutual. I don't know if you guys remember those banks back then, but they were created to fail. That was the point, right? There's more, but these two in particular, they were giving out loans in 5 minutes. Literally, you'd say, I want a house. And you're like, they'll check your pulse, right? They'll see if you're breathing, if there's some air going, boom, done, you're approved. 5 minutes, okay? The same way loan officers and realtors back then did not have to work for their money. It's happening now. Realtors now, they didn't have to work for their money. Now they do. That's why when the market crashed last time, we lost roughly 70% of the realtors out there. Okay. And loan officers was almost like 90% of them when the market crashed. Guess where we're at now? A lot of people quitting. Why? Because now you got to work for it. See, now is when you can tell if somebody's really a professional in this business or not, or wants this business or not. Anyway, Nadia says, didn't Chase take over Washington Mutual? Yes, just like Bank of America took over the assets. They didn't take over the bank. So because they're FDIC insured, what they did is they asked another bank, so Countrywide, Bank of America was overseeing the funds and the assets, right? Properties, the same way that Chase was doing for Washington Mutual. They didn't become Chase. They were just pretty much say, hey, could you take care of this baby for me? That's it. Right? Almost like property managers. So what I was going to say is when Countrywide got sued for all the fraud that happened, right? All the fraud, when they got sued, the CEO of Countrywide walked out of that court with $94 million to pay. That's how much he personally had to pay. $94 million. Okay? Do you think he was crying? I saw that day. He's walking out with the biggest smile on his face. What's $94 million? They don't even know what I did. That's probably what he's thinking. Okay? So they don't lose money. They don't care. So Trump's appraiser, just like the whole Trump administration, just like any rich person or any politician, they're taken care of. That's why I say, don't dwell too much in politics. Worry about your own politics, right? Because nobody's going to give you that amount of money, all right? And if you want to steal, make sure you go big. Because if you steal $20, you go to jail. If you steal $20 million, you're good. They even give you a severance package and everything. That's what happened to Wells Fargo's CEO, right? They caught him stealing $20 million, and they're like, all right, fine, you cannot be the CEO anymore. Sorry. Yeah. Go big or go home. That's it. Thank you, Nadi. Once in a while, I got to put these on to remind you guys that I am the teacher, you know? All right. Your property's worth more. Absolutely. And you know what? Most homeowners always have that feeling. So it's our job, also piggybacking on what you're saying. I know you said it as a joke, but piggybacking on what you're saying, it's our job to bring everybody back to reality. Like, look, we're going to go over this. You can put $1 million worth of stuff into your house, improve it so much, or you think your $200,000 house is now worth 1.2 or more, right? Because you put $1 million. But depending on the neighborhood that you're at, right? And when I say neighborhood, we're talking about like whether you're in Texas or you're in New York or you're in Jersey, right? Depending on the neighborhood you're at, it's not going to be worth 1.2. It doesn't matter what you put into it, because say the appraisal is based on comparables, what's around. So if you put too much money into something, it actually decreases the value, meaning you wasted money. It increases a little bit, but not as much. So instead of 1.2 or more, it's actually worth 750 compared to the 500s in the area. All right. So we're going to go over this real quick. Real estate appraisals. Now, real estate valuation plays a crucial role in the transfer. Oh, Lord. Okay. In the transfer of real property, as the assessed value of a parcel establishes the negotiation range for the principal parties. To complete an accurate and effective compare market analysis that assists the seller clients in determining a reasonable asking price, and the buyer clients in making an appropriate offers based on current market conditions. Real estate professionals must also understand the fundamental principles of valuation. When a property is refinanced, the seller may request what's called a broker's price opinion. We'll talk more about that later, which is less expensive than an appraisal. In addition, understanding the procedure enables the real estate professional to identify a questionable appraisal, as we were just talking about, right? Somebody under appraising, somebody over appraising. I mean, I'll go for over appraisals all day. Without getting in trouble, hopefully. All right. Appraising. An appraisal is an estimate or opinion of value based on supportable evidence and approved methods, right? An appraisal report is an opinion of a property's market value provided to a lender or client along with detailed market data. An appraiser is an independent professional who has been trained to provide an unbiased opinion of value in an impartial and objective manner, according to a predetermined appraisal process. Now, appraisal is a professional service performed for a fee. Make sure you underline that. Performed for a fee. And it is against accepted practice and ethics to collect commission based on the appraised property's value. All right. So one of the things that we talk about here is that it's an impartial and an objective matter, meaning when we come up with our opinions, the CMAs, the comparable market analysis that we do, right? If we're not representing either party, we're as good as an appraisal. If we're not representing either party. So a BPO or a CMA, usually, if it's not representing the party, they're good as an appraisal. It's just less expensive, less details, right? But when you're representing a buyer and the other party is representing the seller, you want to have somebody, that's why lenders hire a third party, the appraisal, you want to have somebody that's not related, that's going to give an unbiased opinion. You got it? That's why appraisals exist. So a transaction involving real estate requires an accurate, objective appraisal to prevent what? Fraud, like I said. If I work for one side or work for the other, I'm going to manipulate it. In fact, the Dodd-Frank Act required amendments to the Truth in Lending Act. You guys remember Truth in Lending Act? Jennifer taught you Truth in Lending Act, right? You're saying no? You missed that class. Okay, I was about to say. So what is the Truth in Lending Act? Who can tell me real quick? What does it relate to? You had a whole weekend. What's happening?
I missed that class. That's the only class I
Oh, you missed that class
Yeah.
too? All right, so I forgive both of you. Everybody at home now searching their notes. You cannot search your notes. You have Truth in Lending Act. The section that we talk about the most is Regulation Z. Who remembers that? Am I transferring my migraine to you guys? Everybody's like, I don't know. No advertising, transparency from lenders to borrowers. Okay, so it's not just about advertising, but it is about transparency from lenders to borrowers. It does address how we can advertise or not. It's about full disclosure, absolutely. So the Truth in Lending Act is for us to tell the buyer or potential buyer what is the true cost of obtaining the loan, right? So full disclosure. Anyway, so Dodd-Frank made amendments to TILA and other legislation to prohibit coercion and other activities that influenced appraisals in numerous cases of fraud that happened throughout the last housing crisis. The appraiser independence requirements were implemented by Fannie Mae in October 15, 2010. So Jennifer says, I did teach. I know you did. It took you a while to answer. Were you also thinking about it? What's TILA? Just messing with you. All right. So why is this important? Going back to, and I'll keep on referring to the crisis. After the market crashed, I purchased, not just me, but I purchased a lot of properties. So when the market crashed, some of these properties I would pick up here in Newark, I would pick them up for $40,000, $50,000 each. So purchased a lot of properties, right? Some fix and flip, some held on to them, right? Now, how did the prices go all the way down to $40,000 and $50,000? Because appraisers and realtors, I was not a realtor back then, I was an investor. I was just picking up properties. Okay, just before you say, oh, Bruno, you took advantage. No, I took advantage of what came to my hands. So what appraisers and realtors were doing is they were driving the market value down. So the same way they drove it up, just like now, to take advantage of a down market, what do? We drill a little bit more. Let's see how deep we can go. And they kept on going until some of these properties were worth, like I said, $40,000 and $50,000. $40,000, $50,000 is a lot, meaning a parcel of land. I'm not saying a lot. It's a parcel of land. So I was buying a full-blown house for the price of land. That's how bad the market got back in 2010. All right, when we reached the bottom, then slowly started coming up. But anyway, so a lot of fraud was happening. So in 2010, like I said, in 2010, even Fannie Mae implemented some type of strategy for these appraisals, like what they wanted to see from the appraisals. So even now, if you want to refinance your property with Fannie Mae directly, they will hire their own appraisal as well. So you cannot bring your appraiser and say, hey, well, I paid for an independent one. Nope, that doesn't work. They want their own, just to prevent inflated prices right now. All right, regulation. So regulation of appraisal activities. Title VI of the Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act of 1989 mandates that any appraisal used in connection with a federal-related transaction must be conducted by a competent individual who is licensed or certified by the state where the appraiser practices. So what we said right now is anything, and you guys must remember this from the financial chapters, right? Chapter 14 and 13 and 14, where it says that federal-related transactions, they must respect RESPA and TILA regulations, right? Now, for appraisal practices, it's the same thing. If it's a federal-related transaction, the appraisers, so let's say it's an FHA, appraiser must be FHA certified or licensed in the state where they practice. So I practice in New Jersey. If I go to California, I need to have a license there as well. Okay? Same thing as realtors, same thing as everybody else. So it's just the funniest thing, you guys, I don't know if you know this, but until 2009, till right after the crash, till April 2009, even mortgage people did not need a license. We were regulated. We've been regulated since 1913.
Oh.
Yeah, we were regulated. But mortgage people that are handling a financial asset, the largest financial asset that people usually will get
No
into.
wonder we had a crash.
No wonder we had a crash, right? They were not licensed until April 2019.
That's so recent.
And appraisers are now being forced to not be licensed at a national level. It's state level. So everything was changed in 1989 to be at state level. Because the property, look, even by the way, sometimes they send appraisers. I'm in Newark. Sometimes they send appraisers from Cape May. Like it's a different market. Believe it or not, the practices are the same across the board. The uniform, we're going to go over that. The uniform standard practices of the appraisal procedures of the appraisal practice. They're standard. So are the practices for us realtors. But from North to South Jersey, the market shifts completely, even from one town to another. Why are you sending me somebody that's not from the area? That's how I can easily dispute these things sometimes. Right? I go and say, hey, well, this is what the market is doing. I have access to all the MLSs in the area. Right? I've been working here. These are the closed properties in our office, closed properties in this other office, whatever. These values are wrong. It just happened with one of our realtors where the appraiser put he came from a totally different town. The value of the property was okay, but then the income, which we're going to talk about as well, the rental income was off. The landlord is collecting $1,400 from one of the units. I'm sorry, $1,800 from one of the units. The appraiser states overpriced. Suggestion $1,400. I'm like, guess what's happening now? The buyer looks at that and says overpriced. Well, if I lose this tenant, right? I'm not going to be able to get a tenant that pays as much, therefore not able to pay my mortgage. You see how this relates to our profession, how it's important for us to know this stuff, how to read a report, right? Because of this, they screw up the same way we screw up. They screw up. They literally said, this guy literally said, the tenant is paying too much. So my realtor asked me, Bruno, what do I do? And I told him, listen, what you have to do right now is find comps. One, find comps of rentals for that type of apartment. Number two, how long has this tenant been there? If it's been there for a couple of months, try to find the previous lease and proof of payments. This shows what? Stability. If the previous lease paid somewhere close to this amount, right? We know that it's above the 1,400. We can get more. So yes, we contested the appraisal. That's what we did. So that's what I explained to my realtor. That's what he did. The buyer wanted to back out anyway. I think they were using everything in the book to get out of the deal, which was great because now his buyer wants it. So now he's the listing agent and the buying agent.
He's the blending.
That's it. So it worked out great in this scenario, but we could have lost the deal because of the appraisal report. All right. Now, FERIA requires that each state has a separate appraisal licensing agency from the agent that licenses real estate professionals. And I'm sorry, a federal related transaction is a financial transaction involving real estate in which a federal financial institution or regulatory agency is involved, like FHA or VA. Including transactions that you use real property as collateral for a loan or investment, and even mortgage-backed securities. Residential property appraisals valued at $250,000 or less are exempt and do not require licensed or certified appraisers. Non-residential properties with a value of more than $500,000 require certified appraisers. So if it's residential below 250, no worries. If it's commercial below 500, no worries. No need for appraisals. Okay. This was updated 2018, I think it was 17 or 18. These numbers were updated recently. All right, appraiser qualifications. Is anybody going to be an appraiser? Most likely not. So, but I still have to go through it real quick. All right. In case you're interested. I did cut out a lot of stuff. They used to, in the books, they used to talk about, oh, how many hours you need to become an appraiser. Level 1, level 2, level 3, meaning apprentice, certified, or general appraisal, right? There's a certain amount of hours and how much can you appraise? Above $1 million value, you need a special license. You cannot be an apprentice. So, yeah, gets crazy. Jennifer says, me appraiser. Me Bruno. I don't know, like, was that the answer? I thought you were saying like me, Jane, you Tarzan type of thing. Me appraiser. All right. Appraiser qualifications. So state licensing and certification requirements for appraisers must comply with the requirements of the appraisal subcommittee of the Federal Financial Institutions Examination Council, as suggested by the appraiser qualifications boards of the Appraisal Foundation. The Appraisal Foundation is a nonprofit organization comprised of representatives from the most prominent appraisal and related groups. Appraisers must adhere to the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice. This you're going to see out the book and potential in the exam. Now, established by the Appraisal Standards Board of the Appraisal Foundation when conducting appraisals. Both these boards, so we're talking about the Appraisal Qualification Board and the Appraisal Standard Boards, both of these consist of active appraisers, government officials, and educators. It's almost like the same as the National Association of Realtors. Okay. The Appraisal Foundation also established the Appraisal Practices Board, which provides appraisers, regulators, and users of appraisal services with voluntary guidance on recognized valuation methods and techniques for all valuation disciplines. These are some of the professional associations. I'm not going to go through them. You guys can read. If you're interested in becoming one, or if you want to get more information, these will be some of the places to go to. Okay. No, that's what I'm skipping. But there's a lot of stuff. Okay. I need to fill 75 hours and I cannot give you the direct questions to the exam. Let's put it like that. And there's a lot of stuff that's general that you should know, right? Like if you want to put a complaint about the appraisers, where do you go? You go to the state because they're state licensed, right? If you want to get information about how appraisals work or get more involved in that and maybe get your CE credits, continuous education credits, you can go to any of these. They provide CE credits as well. And you get to know more about valuation. A lot of these have programs for realtors. So anyway, comparative market analysis or CMA. Not all valuations are made by professional appraisers. Licensees frequently prepare a comparative market analysis for a seller or buyer. A CMA differs substantially from an appraisal report provided by a licensed or certified appraiser. What I want you guys to do, we're going to repeat this a couple of times, but what I want you guys to do is underline this sentence that we just read, that a CMA is different from an appraisal. All right, and I want you to do this because it might be a question on the exam. Maybe not about the difference between them, but the fact that one is conducted by a certified appraiser, the other one is by us. Therefore, when we advertise marketing, we cannot say, hey, free appraisal of your property. No, because we are not appraisers. What we do is a CMA. An appraiser does an appraisal, and you pay a fee for it. All right. So when we get to the New Jersey portion, we'll talk about advertisement. It's explicit there that you cannot do that. Okay. An appraisal is based on detailed analysis of market conditions, the features of the subject property and comparable properties in the neighborhood, recent sales and listings, land value, and current construction costs, everything a lender will want to consider when deciding whether to make a loan and accept the property as collateral for the debt. The CMA focuses on properties comparable to the subject property. Subject property is the one we're trying to figure out the value, in terms of size, location, and amenities to estimate a possible listing price or offer price. The CMA analysis is based on recently sold properties, currently listed properties, and properties that did not sell. Okay. So we're going to look at stuff that appraisers don't look at. Appraisers don't look at expired properties. Appraisers don't look at properties that are currently listed. They just look at closed properties and then the details of the house. All right. So we use open, closed, and expired. These values will tell you what pretty much what the property value might be. Why do you think the expired listings might give you an idea of value?
Expired and means it's on the market, like it was market for too long, so probably was overpriced.
Say it louder.
If it's expired, then it probably means that it's been on the market for a long time and it's probably overpriced. That's why no one's buying it.
99.9%, that will be the answer. It's overpriced. If you don't, if you cannot move product, means it's overpriced. That's how it is. All right. Simple as that. It expires because it's overpriced. Or the only possible answer for this would be that there was too many issues with the property. It's either the seller that had issues correct title, or there's issues with the property itself that could not be fixed on time, or the buyer did not accept, no buyer accepted to take over. All right. In either event, it's overpriced. Because if I know of all these issues, I need to start thinking, well, how much is it going to cost me to fix? How much are people going to negotiate me down on? Is it worth fixing before listing, or let's just take a hit because the headache of getting licenses, permits, building permits, getting the general contractor, getting this person, getting that person, should I just to sell, or take the loss and move forward to be quicker? Right. So these are things that we need to present to the seller. Most of the times, you can fix it cheaper than what's going to be negotiated. Right. I've seen this where sometimes it's like $5,000 to fix the problem, and here comes the investor and says, hey, because of all these problems, and I don't know what's underlying, right? I'm just looking at what the report says, $40,000 less. But this is $5,000 to fix. Yeah, I know. This is my offer. You don't have to take it the same way I don't have to take your offer. But it's a negotiation point. You see what I'm saying? For a lot of people, they don't have the $5,000 to fix. That's why they let it go. Like, okay, fine. But can we meet somewhere half middle, 20? For me, it's already a win. You see what I'm saying? Right? And that's how investors look at it. Buyers been trying to take advantage of that for a very long time because of the way the market was going. Sellers were taking advantage. Now buyers are taking advantage. It's the way it is. You're in the middle. You have to be able to tell a seller what they should do, in your opinion, right? And you have to be able to tell a buyer how to negotiate logically. Some buyers are really exaggerate on that negotiation, and then deal falls through. Right?
What do you mean by that exactly?
Like I said, for a $5,000 repair, they bring it down 40.
Yeah, okay.
And then they demand plus seller's concession, plus this, plus that, plus like they start with all these crazy demands because the seller said yes to one thing. Right? Believe me, I had a seller that was a buyer, and I said, friend of mine, okay? I gave him to somebody else. I did not represent the friend. I did it on purpose. But then I'm talking to him. I said, dude, really? You're the seller, right? You're putting the seller going through torture to provide everything you want to purchase the house. Your buyer asked for one thing and you're saying no. This guy negotiating his purchase was able to bring down almost $60,000.
That's a good negotiation.
That's a great negotiation, right? His buyer said, hey, it's like I did an estimate, it's like $5,800 to fix. So you gotta give me credit on the $5,800. He's like, no, I'll give you $1,000 if you want. I'm like, these Portuguese people, I tell you, horrible.
Did he get the
Huh?
1,000?
Oh, that buyer walked away. He got another one that offered way more. But listen, sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not. That property could have stayed there forever.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway. All right. Broker's price opinion. What's the difference between CMA and BPO? A broker's price opinion, which we can do, is less expensive alternative for analyzing real estate and is frequently utilized by lenders for home equity lines like refinancing, portfolio management, loss mitigation, and collections. Although some BPOs are more comprehensive, including neighborhood and interior research, many of them are just merely a drive-by that verifies that the property exists and provides a list of comparable sales. A BPO should not be mistaken, again, underline that, should not be mistaken than an appraisal. A BPO should not be mistaken with an appraisal. Which consists of a more in-depth analysis of collected data and may only be conducted by a licensed or certified appraiser. BPOs are not used in a federal-related transaction nor in state that requires an appraisal. Great question, Stephen. So the same as CMAs, we can get paid for BPOs. In fact, it's one of the things that I used to do for bankruptcy attorneys and for family attorneys. So a lot of times, because lenders are the ones that request this, right? So a lot of times to satisfy the bankruptcy or to satisfy the divorce, the dissolution, or even probate, right? They would ask for a broker's price opinion instead of a full-blown appraisal. An appraisal could cost $600. I would charge anywhere between $150 to $300, depending on the type of BPO they're asked for. If it's just a drive-by, and by the way, Google Maps, if it's just a drive-by, $150. If I have to go there and see the property, I would go all the way to $300 and even $350 sometimes. Still cheaper than an appraisal. But yes, you can charge. It's called consulting services versus representation. Remember we talked about that? You can get paid for consulting about market values, right? That's what it is. Now, you want to make money? You can make, like starting, you can make like $75 per report, like when you have no experience. It takes a lot of time in the beginning, but $75 per report. And the best way to do it is contact bankruptcy attorneys, family attorneys, or probate attorneys. They'll give you enough business for you to make an extra, I don't know, maybe $400 or $500 a week. So that's what it is. What I try to do back then, I try to line them all up for one day. So different attorneys would send me different requests, and I'll try to do it all in one day. So technically, you make $500 in a day.
What do you write?
Huh?
What do you write? All the properties there.
Well, it's more than that. It's an opinion of value. So it's more than that. But you'll learn how to do that. I'm not going to go over that right now.
Okay.
Do you have to be a broker? No. You have to work for a broker, and you might have to split that fee with the broker. That's different. Remember, you are the broker by extension. Okay, so yeah, it's your broker's responsibility for everything you say or do, but just because it says broker's price opinion doesn't mean the broker does it. We do. We can do it and charge. Your arrangement with your broker is what you need to figure out. Just like for bonuses, a buyer can give you a bonus, a seller can give you a bonus, but all those payments must go through the broker. How you split the bonus depends on your broker. Some will say, hey, if it's a bonus, it's yours. Some will say, oh, your commission is 70-30, so we split the bonus 70-30 as well. It depends on negotiations. All right, so the appraisal process. The appraisal process is a methodical series of steps used to collect and analyze data in order to form a reasonable assessment of value. The most common value requested is market value. However, an appraisal can also be conducted to evaluate property's insurance value, salvage value, or assessment value for taxation purposes. And there's more values, but these are the basics. The appraiser's data requirements can be separated into two fundamental categories. We have general data and specific data. General data is everything that influences the economy around the property. And this is why I say that Newark is its own market, Kearney is its own market, Cape May is its own market, and so on, right? But we can go all the way to the United States. We can go all the way to around the world. Like a global pandemic will be part of general data. It affected everything. Does that make sense? So we need to know what's happening. Politics could be affecting. If there's a change of throne, let's say, there's a change of throne, it affects everything, as you guys know. And then specific data is direct to the property. So this includes the nature and characteristics of the subject property, upgrades as well as, or improvements, or as well as comparable properties that are similar to and competitive with the subject property. Okay, so we're going to look at if my property is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, what am I going to look for? Other properties in the area that are 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So similar and competitive, meaning they're either on the market or they were on the market as well. Okay, yes.
Is there, like, there could be 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but square footage is completely different, so maybe.
We make adjustments. I'll talk about that then. After reconciling the approaches and arriving at a value opinion, the appraiser writes a report for the customer, and the report should identify the valued real estate and real property interest, explain the evaluation's objective and planned application, define the desired value, indicate the value's effective date and the date of the report, specify the extent of data collection, validation, and reporting procedure, list all the assumptions and limiting conditions that influence the value analysis, viewpoint, and results, describe the information analyzed, the evaluation methods utilized, and the reasons supporting the report's conclusions. If an evaluation method was omitted, the report should also explain why. Describe the appraiser's view of the property's highest and best usage. We're going to talk about that. Provide any additional information that may be required to demonstrate compliance with the specific principles set in the US PAP, which we talked about earlier, or to clearly identify and explain any deviations from these recommendations. And finally, include a signed certification per US PAP requirements. Now, I only had one question in all these years. One question regarding the report itself. And the question says, amongst the requirements, all of these except, something like that, right? Or amongst the requirements, which one of these is one of them, something like that. And this was the answer, signed certification. So not only do they have to fill out the report according to all this, at the end they have to sign that they are the appraiser that has all these years of experience, and in their professional opinion, and the penalty of perjury and all that stuff, they certify the value. It's pretty much what it is. The appraisal reports. Several governmental agencies require a uniform residential appraisal report, and it displays the types of specific information required for residential property appraisal. In addition, it emphasizes the large list of credentials required of the appraiser. It includes a page of instructions as well. Although the appraiser does not decide value, neither does the seller, neither does what the seller desires to receive, or what the buyer desires to spend, or what the real estate agent proposes. Okay? This does not determine value. Using experience and knowledge of valuation theories, the appraiser generates an objective report that supports the market value. Sellers and real estate agents may dispute the appraiser's value, arguing that it's lower than believed it should be. We already covered this. And since the appraisal is typically ordered by a lender who will base their loan decision based on the property's appraised worth, the appraiser must be able to provide quantitative evidence to support the appraisal report. And the lender's concern usually is recovering their money in the event of a loan default, knowing at what price can the property likely be sold is key to the lender, and they rely on the appraiser's expertise to answer this question. So why do I need an appraisal? We already went over this. That's why I read really fast. Why do we need an appraisal? Because the bank wants to secure their asset, right? What's their asset? Their investment. They gave you $500,000. The property better be worth 500 or more. Does that make sense? So that's what they want to know from the report, that it is worth it. Jennifer, you're funny. She didn't answer before because she was driving. She didn't want to get lost like the time she was buying a turkey. So yes, when she used to listen into my classes, one day she's asking me questions and then doesn't reply. And I'm like, Jen, I just answered your question. Don't know if you heard me, whatever, or not. She goes like, I heard you, I'm buying a turkey and this and that. I'm like, huh, all right. You ask me a question and bounce, right?
To buy a turkey.
To buy a turkey. Yeah,
Was it Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Okay.
it was, of course.
I was gonna say, if it was just like a random day, maybe it wasn't all of it.
I don't know. Anyway, value. The real estate industry deals with real estate and its value. Oh, by the way, guys, there's I think 10 questions in the exam about appraisals. So yes, it's heavily tested, just in case you're wondering. Value is not the same as price, nor is it the same as cost. Specifically, value can be defined as the monetary worth of goods, products, or services that are offered in the marketplace at any given time. It also has been described as the present worth of future benefits. So what is value? When you look at a property, why would you pay $500,000 for it? Because there's value to it. What is the value? The value of living in it, the value of not paying rent, the value of comfort. It's your place, right? So value is the benefit you get out of it. So no, cost generally relates to the past, so the cost of construction. Price is the present, which is what you're paying for now, and value is what you're going to benefit from after you purchase. So let's look at polos, let's look at jeans, let's look at whatever you buy, anything you buy today. You're buying at one price, but you expect it to last X amount of days, months, years. Does that make sense? So value comes after the purchase. Okay. Now you determine the price based on what it's worth to you, what the value is, obviously. Now, to have value in real estate, in the real estate market, a property must have the following characteristics, which can be remembered as dust. Demand, that means the need or desire for possession or ownership backed by financial means to satisfy that need. Utility, which is the property's usefulness for its intended purposes. Scarcity means it's a limited supply, okay? Because if there's a lot of it, value goes down, right? So limited supply. And transferability, the relative ease with which ownership rights are transferred from one person to another. So let's talk about market value, market price, and cost, okay? So market value. You already know the market value is an opinion. The seller has an opinion, the buyer has an opinion, the appraiser has an opinion, the lender doesn't care. Give me facts, right? So how do we figure out market value? It's an opinion of the price that a willing seller and willing buyer would probably agree on for a property at a given time, if the transaction is cash. Okay, that's one of the things. If there's no conditions, transaction is cash, there's freedom to negotiate, right? If the property is exposed on the open market for a reasonable period. Do you guys think all these properties that went on the market and got under contract the same day, do you think they had enough time to expose? Why do we need exposure on the market? To have enough people bid. Does that make sense? So we assume that enough exposure, it's not here, it's not going to be on the exam. We assume that enough exposure goes on the market today. After 4 days, you got to think of it as popcorn, right? If you have if you ever made popcorn, you know how it is, whether it's microwavable or not. You put it there for some time and then you start hearing pop, right? After a while, what happens? After it's popping, what happens?
It's burning.
It starts slowing down. And if you leave it there, what happens? it burns. So that's the same thing with the market. You put on the market, you don't hear the first pop and go open that thing and start eating, because there could be better pops. All right. You want more, right? So you wait until it keeps popping a little bit more and it reaches the max, right? Combination of the popping. And then when it starts slowing down, now you know that's the best offer you could ever get. If you're still waiting for more offers, guess what? It's going to burn. You don't want that. But in the market that we're in, it was a seller's market, right? So you could demand whatever, and people are like, listen, if the offer is above asking price, I'll take it. It was as easy as that. And any offer that came through was above asking price, except for some people from the previous market that thought, oh no, we're going to get seller's concession, we're going to offer below. Like, come on, that's not the market we're in. So, you guys understand what I'm saying? Right? So, it has to be reasonable exposure. A lot of realtors were taking it right away for their interest. Right? They'll go to the seller and say, hey, seller, here's an offer. 20K above asking price. Right? I think you should accept it. Just like that. Why do they want that? Because it's easy money, quick money. Our goal is to get the best value for the clients. Now, guess what? That easy money didn't always close. That's why when I hear people going like, oh, I just sold the house. I'm like, you just got on the market yesterday. How did you just sell the house? Did you close already? No, but I got a buyer for a 20K above. So you didn't close. No, I didn't, but I got it. I'm like, no, you don't. It ain't over until the fat lady sings. Right? And guys, the reference is for opera. Okay, the best singers, that's what it is, the reference for opera, the best of the opera show. Just in case, you know. Anyway, so it's not over until we do what? Till we close. It's not closed until we close. So we got to get to the closing table, sign the checks, sign the paperwork, give the keys in exchange, then, and only then, it's closed. So there has to be reasonable exposure. The buyer and seller, hold on a second, Jefferson. But doesn't that depend on the seller's willingness to sell? What do you mean? Everything depends on the seller's willingness to sell, the buyer's willingness to buy. It's right here. Boom, boom. You're talking about the exposure, the popcorn, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Look, if I have a seller that needs to be in Florida tomorrow because they got a new job and they need to start tomorrow, then obviously there's a rush here. All right. Obviously, at this point is the exception. And guys, everything I talk about is in the general way. Every property is going to have their own uniqueness. Okay. So some people need to buy right away. Some people need to sell right away. Some people got all the time in the world. The example I gave you of my friend that bought a property where he negotiated $60,000 down, right? And he didn't want to negotiate with his buyer for his property because this guy had his mortgage paid. That's why he wasn't budging on his side, on the selling side. On the buying side, he was putting pressure because the seller needed to leave. So yes, he negotiated $60K based on few little cosmetic stuff. So yes, it has to do with the seller's willingness to sell and the buyer's willingness to buy and their needs. So that's what we're trying to say here, right here. If there's no abnormal pressure on either party to complete the transaction, if there's pressure, then obviously these values are going to change, right? Steven says we were outbid on our house. The deal fell apart and they came back to us. There you go. Well, at least I'm happy that the realtor kept you in the loop, because there's a lot of realtors, they forget to take a list of everybody that put an offer and go back to that list in case it falls through. A lot of realtors don't do that. Anyway, the buyer and seller have full information about market conditions and potential uses. It's an arm's length transaction. This is almost guaranteed to be a state exam question. Arm's length. What do you think arm's length means without reading? Arm's length, right? The arm, keeping you at a distance. What we say with this sentence, arm's length, right? It's because people that we keep within arm's length usually are friends, family, or close acquaintances, right? Maybe not friends, but hey, let's go have drinks, whatever. Closer. The arm's length is keeping people at a distance, meaning you fight for yourself, I'm going to fight for myself. Right? Because if it's a father and a daughter, they are getting the sale done. Right? Let's say I'm selling my house to my daughter as an example. Right? Am I going to sell for full price? No, I'm going to charge double, right? Of course. No, but that's the point. Because I know the person, because I have intimacy with the person somehow, right? The judgment is not going to be the same. So arm's length transaction is one in which parties are unrelated and unaffiliated and agree to do the business acting independently and in their self-interest. Acting independently and in their self-interest. Arm's length transaction. Very, very important that you guys know this term. Now, title is marketable and conveyable by the seller, and the price is a normal consideration, and that is, it does not include hidden influences such as special financing deals, concessions, terms, services, fees, credit costs, or other type of considerations. So that would be the market value. So another way of describe market value is that it's the highest price that the buyer would pay and the lowest price that the seller would accept for the property. Because they determine the value based on their wanting or willingness to sell, willingness to buy without any influence. Okay, without any pressure. I need to sell or I need to buy. So freedom. Okay. Market price, as opposed to market value, the market price is how much the property actually sells for. Theoretically, market price should be the same as market value if all the things that make up market value are present. An estimate of market value, on the other hand, looks at similar sales and the value of the investment. The market price may not reflect this. All right, cost. A lot of people believe that buying price of a piece of property is the same as its fair market value. Cost and market value could be identical. When a property's improvements are new, cost and value are likely to be equivalent. But more often, cost does not match the market worth. A homeowner may install a swimming pool for $30,000, but the cost of the improvement may not increase the property's worth by $30,000. So I'll say it this way. I'm building a property, let's say, here in Newark. The lot is 25 by 100. It cost me $15,000 as an example. And I'm building a property in Jackson, right? A lot is 25 by 100. It cost me $15,000. We're going to assume, for this example, that both lots in different areas, but both lots cost me the same, $15,000. I negotiated to that point. The cost of construction for both is $250,000. Therefore, the value should be the same, right? If they cost the same to purchase, they're the same type of lot, and the construction was the same value or same cost, right? Then the value, the market value of it should be the same, correct? You're saying no? You're saying no?
Depends.
Huh?
It depends.
Why does it depend?
Just because you're in Newark or in Jackson, it makes a big difference for what.
Location.
Yeah, location.
Location, yeah, exactly. So location, there, we talked about this in the first chapters as well. Location. It could be exactly the same, the cost, exactly the same. So here we're talking about adding a pool, but I'm giving you a totally different example. Building a house here, a single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath here in Newark, or building it in Jackson will be the same cost, $250K. Same material, same everything. In fact, that's one of the things I do as an investor. My properties are pretty much the same. This way I can buy more material cheaper, right, in bulk, right? So the properties are exactly the same. Even the constructions very line up with the same people. So you get out of here, go there and replicate. That's it. There's no trying to figure out things. The difference between them could be permits. The building department inspections, their requirements could be different. Construction is the same. Cost is the same, except for that. But when you go sell it, in Jackson, it's gonna be worth way more than in Newark. And the taxes are gonna be different, so that's also different values. The benefits are gonna be different, so different values. So cost and market value or market price are not always the same. Okay, so let's talk about basic principles of value. A variety of economic factors can influence real estate values. What follows is definition of most of the fundamental ones. Supply and demand. Do I need to go over this one? I think we already went over it in a different chapter, right? Supply and demand, you guys know what it is. There's too many properties, right? Not enough demand, values go down, not enough, a lot of demand, values go up. Now, utility. What do you think utility is? Utility is useful for me. Right? I'm not going to buy a property that's not useful for me. Right? I got 4 kids. Do I need a 2-bedroom house? So the 2-bedroom's not useful for me. It doesn't have the same value. Oh, but this is a mansion. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But it doesn't have enough rooms for my kids. Right? What am I going to do? Get another house just for the kids? So it has to be utility. As a business, I'm a school, right? I don't want to be in the place that looks like a restaurant. So utility is key. So the fact that the property has utility in a particular market contributes to its demand. Use is distinct from function. For example, a swampy area may have an ecological purpose as wetland, but it may have no economic value if it cannot put to use for which people are prepared to pay. Transferability. Now, this one you know as well, so I'm going to skip it right away. It's being able to sell and being able to clear title and all that stuff. Anticipation. This is a word you got to remember for investment purposes as well. Anticipation. What does it mean to anticipate something? To expect, right? So we buy a property based on expectation. There's 2 expectations that come from the property. It's either that's going to generate income, right? That's an investment expectation, right? Generate income every month, or that it's going to increase in value. We anticipate value, right? Principle of substitution. Yep, equity. There you go. Equity comes from appreciation. Yep. Principle of substitution. According to the substitution principle, a buyer will not pay more for one property than what he or she would pay for an equally desirable and available substitute property. For instance, if 3 properties for sale are comparable in size, quality, and location, a potential buyer is unlikely to choose the one that is much more expensive. Substitution. I'm sorry? Sometimes it is common sense. Sometimes people really like the color blue. My point is, sometimes the property values or the property price, the listed price are ridiculous. The difference between one and the other, right? Everything is very similar, but then it's the door, it's the finishes, it's the color, right?
Like one little detail
That you're
willing
off.
to pay.
You're willing to pay more, right? So as an investor, I try to look at the worst house in the neighborhood, the worst one. And then I'll upgrade it. I'll make it look better. But most people, they have this desire of being turnkey, no worries about it. It looks exactly like I want. This is why for us realtors, it's very difficult. I'm letting you guys know right now. It's very difficult to find houses for buyers. Okay, very difficult. You take a buyer to 100 houses and they're like, oh, I like the kitchen in house number 2, but I really like the bedrooms in house number 25. And you know what? The backyard on this house is amazing. I'm like, all right, how about we buy land and build what you want? Right? Obviously, I'm exaggerating here, but I do speak to them about compromising. You have to. At one point, you have to. No house is built custom for you unless you do it. Right? Now, we can do that. It's actually cheaper than you buying the house. We can do that. It's going to take just a few more months for us to close. Right? We'll find a suitable lot or a house that we can knock down and build brand new. Right? So you have to be able to talk to them about that. But the majority of people, they will look for the cheaper house out of the 3 in this example. if everything is pretty much the same. Contribution, we already talked about it. For instance, when you add a swimming pool, right? Is it going to increase value? A lot of the times it doesn't. If you're in New Jersey, why would you have a pool? Unless it's indoors and heated. Why would you have a pool? You only use it like 2 or 3 days out of the year. Because Jersey has 4 seasons in one day. So what's the point, right? But if you're in Florida, or if you're in California, or if you're in Texas, Arizona, these are places that demand for you to have this type of amenity. They will value the property way more than here. Does that make sense? Right? So you need to know, again, location, location, location. Will your contribution increase the value? Right? Now, with contribution comes increasing and diminishing returns, as I was saying before. The installation of improvements to lands and structures typically increase the market value of the property, but only to a certain extent. Beyond that point, improvements have no effect on the property's worth because market purchasers or renters cannot be expected to pay more. So the law of increasing returns applies, so as long as spending money on improvements results in a rise in income or value. So whatever you put in, you get a return out of it, or either by income or value. Obviously, the law of diminishing returns applies at the point where further improvements no longer increase income or value. No matter how much money is invested in the property, its worth does not increase proportionally. A refurbished kitchen or bathroom may boost a home's value, but adding restaurant quality appliances and handcrafted wood floors may become expenses that the homeowner cannot recover. All right. Next one, change. Can changes affect value? What changes were you talking about? So, the principle of change states that no physical or economic condition remains constant. Natural disasters such as tornadoes, fires, and normal wear and tear can all affect real estate. Like any other business, the real estate industry is subject to market forces. An appraiser must be knowledgeable about both the past and the predicted future effects of natural phenomena and market behavior. If you live in certain areas of Florida, you know what's going to happen, right? Storms, hurricanes, right? So you got to know that. You got to be ready. Hey, you know why houses are so cheap over here? Well, not as much anymore, but you know why houses are so cheap over here? Because every like 3 to 5 years, you're going to have to deal with redoing your whole house. Like, what do you mean? Well, you see, the way it works is Mother Nature decides to, sprinkle a little rain over here and take the houses away. So depending on the market that you're in, got to be ready for that. Here we talk about, wow. Here we have snow, for instance. Lewis goes like harp. Does not exist, Lewis. It's a myth, like climate change. HARP does not exist. Yeah. Think of it as cloning hurricanes, tornadoes, and all that stuff. So man-made destruction. Let's correct that. Okay, it's 2022. Human-made destruction. Okay. All right. I still don't know why most hurricanes are named after women, but
I mean,
just say.
Say that.
You make sense, you say? As a woman, you say makes sense? Because when women get mad, get out of the way.
Exactly. It makes sense.
This is why I don't get anybody mad. I walk away myself. All right. Highest and highest and best use. Highest and best use. Now, this is a term that's very important for you guys to know for exam purposes, but also, especially when you're dealing with investors, highest and best use is very important. Investors of a business or investors of rental property. So the most profitable single use of a property is its highest and best use. And the use must be physically possible, legally permitted, economically or financially feasible, and the most profitable or maximally, hold on, maximally productive. Most profitable and maximally productive. For instance, a property with a historic house on it that is bordered by retail establishments may not be in its best, highest, and greatest usage, right? It's an historic house, but everything else is retail around. Do you think there's value to that? No, there is value. Is it its optimal value? No. If the property zoning supports its conversion to retail use, the highest and best use may be retail and not residential. Let's convert this into a bed and breakfast. It's an historic house, convert it to a museum, convert it to something that's going to bring income, because that's what this area is for. You got it? So zoning is key for value. Conformity. This concept states that a property's value is maximized when its form and function are in harmony with neighboring properties and functions. A 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom property surrounded by a 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom properties, for instance, may get the most value from a room addition, right? Doesn't that make sense? Everything around is 3-2 or 4-2, whatever. Let's add another bedroom or another bathroom, depending on what the demand is. It increases value. But if you're in an area, or let's say, even if it's your property, forget the area altogether. Your property is 3-bedroom, 1-bath. If you add another bathroom, do you think it increases value? It does. Guaranteed, it does. Now, what if it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and you put in another bathroom? How much more value are you going to get from an additional bathroom here? Not that much. It could increase value, yes, but is it enough to substantiate your? No, doesn't make sense, right? There are some properties out there. I remember seeing this years ago. A 6-bedroom, 7-bath, and I'm like, this family got serious issues, right? Why would you need 7 bathrooms in this house? Crazy.
I
Yes.
watch a lot of like luxury real estate shows or whatever. And
It had to be luxury. Luxury is coming in.
But
This was not in the luxury zone, and that's why I was bringing it in.
it's for entertaining, right? That's why they have all those extra bathrooms.
Bathrooms for entertaining. I get it.
And-
Mhm. Masha just said, "Oh, it's for entertaining because it's luxury." Like, yeah,
Entertaining is bathroom, but you have a lot of people that think it's your entertaining, so you need a lot of bathrooms.
we like some hors d'oeuvres in the bathroom while you're in the jacuzzis. All right. Rich people problems. But this particular property that I'm talking about was in Elizabeth, and not in the best area of Elizabeth. But this guy bought the property for $400,000 at the time, and he was trying to sell 4 years later after the market crash, trying to sell the property for 700 something thousand. He put 400 and something into it. He's already losing money. And when I see the property, 700 or something, and I see the pictures, because one of our agents was looking at it, and I passed by, I'm like, ooh, nice house, right? I'm looking at the pictures. That's the price, 700. That's amazing. 6-bedroom, 7-bath. They had a pool. He had this. He had that. Amazing, beautiful, custom, right? And I'm like, where's that located? As soon as I saw the address, I'm like, oh no, not even 600,000 for that property, because it's not what you put into it. It's where it's at. So regression and progression. A property's value influences and is influenced by the values of nearby properties. If a property is surrounded by properties with higher values, then its value tends to increase, and that's called progression. If it's bordered by properties with lower value, its value tends to decrease or decline, and that's called regression. And that's common sense. That's what I was saying before. I saw this property once in New York. I was trying to help a friend of mine buy a property there at the United Nations building. That condo, the bathroom had a jade toilet. We had gold trimming. We had here. These are the things that the again, rich people problems. These are the things that the realtor's trying to sell us on, right? I was just consulting because I'm not licensed in New York. Oh no, look, the jade toilet. I'm like, okay, is it going to make Does everything go smoother? Is that what it is for? All right. Supposedly it is. That's what she said. I'm like, okay. It has gold trimming, and I'm like, And how does that benefit any of us? The gold trimming? Can I take it out and sell? I mean, at this point, I was joking, right? And then I'm like, it's a great house, but 3.4 million. 2 bedrooms, condo. And I didn't show you guys. Look, it's you see the Pepsi sign from here.
Okay,
I look at her, I'm like, people are crazy to what they give value. I'm sorry, if you're from New York, Stephen. Crazy people. A Pepsi sign? I want to sleep, not have a red lights right on my face.
yeah, anything that would make me want to pay less.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. The Pepsi sign. I'm a Coke fan myself. But by the way, what's up with the air conditioning? It wasn't working. I'm like, you're giving me, Miss New York too. You're giving me all these things, the jade toilet, the gold trimming, the Pepsi Cola sign, and the AC doesn't work? 3.4 million.
Should have shaved some of that gold, paid for the AC.
That's it. Anyway. It's about the FDR view. I know, the views. I'm too simple for that. I'll go visit once in a while. That's it,
I think New York looks so much better from far.
right?
Yeah.
No,
like,
there's good stuff there. There's good stuff.
You gotta really know where you're going.
You gotta know where you're going. Yeah. Just follow the movies. Whatever they show in the movies, that's the places you go to. Stay away from the other streets. Hey, New Yorkers not attacking me today? All right, cool. I'm not saying the Jersey's much better. Attention, that's not what I'm saying, okay? Assemblage. Got a few. Assemblage and subdivision. So assemblage, as the name says, I want you to remember IKEA. Because when you buy something from IKEA, what do you have to do?
Put it together.
Put it together. So assemblage is when you get several parcels of land or 2 parcels of land and you put them into one. So pretty much you go to the city and say, hey, I purchased this lot. Later on, I purchased this lot. I want to make them one. That's called assemblage. And the additional value provided is called plottage value. Plottage value. We'll talk about it a little bit better in subdivisions. Subdivision in a chapter that addresses subdivision. Subdivision, additionally, the division of a single property into multiple small, so it's the opposite of assemblage, right? Might result in an increase in total value. For example, 1 acre suburban lots valued at $50,000 may be split into 4 quarter-acre lots, each valued at 30. So you make way more money because you can now build one house in each one of them. The principle greatly contributes to economic viability of the subdivision development.